Good morning, everybody. It's Chad from Sticks Blog and my dog Lucy. Today I want to do a video and talk about the Altra Lone Peak 3.0s. Now, I will say, these are not the newest Altra Lone Peaks that are on the market. These are the 3.0s. I have 3.5s. However, these are the ones that I have. Part of the reason I'm doing this video is because, like I said, these are the ones I have, but also, just like I did when I got these, you can still find some really good deals on the Altra Lone Peak 3.0s. When I picked mine up, I think I got them off a running warehouse, and it was less than $60 shipped to my door. I want to say also, I ended up buying two pair. One pair that I have here, the other pair that I keep at work. So these are the Altra Lone Peak 3.0s. Like I said, they do have the 3.5s coming out. The reason I ended up going with these is because, like I said, first off was the price. Now, I've been hiking with folks. I've known folks ever since the original Altra Lone Peaks came out, and they were shoes that I were interested in. But one thing that kept me away from them was a lot of people complained about how slippery they were, that they just didn't have any traction to them. So I kind of stayed away from them. But with the Altra Lone Peak 3.0s, it seems like I read some good reviews as far as traction was concerned. They talked about they improved the traction on them. They still don't use the Vibram soles, but they have improved traction on them from what I read. Between that and the fact that my Innovates, which I wore, and they're just dead, I needed to replace them, and that I found these for less than $60, I was like, I'm going to give them a try. So last August, I picked up two pair. One pair I picked up in what I normally wear, which is size 12. I leave those at work. I wear them while I'm at work. This pair here I picked up in a size 12 and a half. Now, I want to say the reason I picked it up in a 12 and a half is because generally I wear a half a size larger or so bigger when I'm hiking. Now, that's not a definite rule or anything. It's not because shoes don't fit me. I just like to have something slightly bigger, as long as it'll still work out okay without giving me any trouble, to allow my feet to swell while I'm hiking. I've noticed that even on just short multiple day hikes, like 2-3 days out, at the beginning of my hike, my shoes will fit a little different than they do at the end of the hike. They're usually a little tighter. So because of that, I don't mind having just a little bit of wiggle room just to make up for any differences or any changes in the size of my feet while I'm actually hiking. And because I'm going to be on the JMT, I plan on being out 20 days. That's going to be the longest stretch I've been out at a time. So I figure my feet's going to swell just a little bit. Another thing too, for me, I generally wear slightly thicker socks when I go hiking than I do when I'm at home and I just at work and everything. So because of that, the slightly larger size is what I prefer to go with. Saying all that, I'm not going to suggest anything for anybody else to do. I say just find what works for you and go for it, because shoes are such a personal thing that it doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter about the brand, the size, or anything like that. It all depends on what works for you. Now, I will say that brand does kind of matter, because some brands are just better than other brands. But that's something that you have to work out. Features are another thing that you have to look at, and some of the features on this shoe are something I want to talk about and discuss how they work for me and what I think about them going into the future. So to go ahead and get started, I just want to give you an idea. Let me show you the other one. An idea of how this shoe looks after I've been wearing this shoe for approximately 5 months. Just to let you know, I've worn this shoe for everything I've done except for work. I've wore it on a Go Ruck Light event I did just previous weekend, and that event was actually in all snow and ice for the most part. I've done a 75-mile Florida Trail hike. That was in December. And besides that, I've done a number of just training rucks, training hikes. I've walked on ellipticals, treadmills, bicycles, mowing the grass. I mean, it's just been a go-to shoe for pretty much everything I do. But I just want to give you a little closer look at what I have here. So like I said, this is the Altra Lone Peak 3.0. And I can't tell you exactly how many miles I have on them. I'm going to say probably between 200 and 300 total. But keep in mind, most of those have been pretty easy miles. I haven't really seen much hard use. You can kind of see here a little bit, and I'm going to talk about this a little more. You can kind of see a little bit where some of the tread and stuff is starting to worn, particularly under the ball of my foot and on the heel. You can see the soles, everything looks pretty good, and they've actually been pretty clean. I will say I haven't had these in just a ton of mud. Like I said, I've had them in lots of snow and ice and lots of dry trail, but not really just a ton of mud. The toe cap there's a little bit of separation at the tip, but so far that's not enough that I would even be concerned about. Still the original shoestrings, the gator traps, still going good. They do collect some fuzz. The pulls and everything look good. Insoles still intact. They're not glued. I'll talk about that. The little hook here is still going good. A little paint's chipped off of it, but that's no problem. But anyway, so that's it. Okay, so like I said, when I bought these, other than the fact that they were pretty inexpensive, only $60 a pair, which is actually still kind of expensive, but compared to what they normally run, 120 bucks, they were a good price. Other than the fact that the price and I just needed a new pair of shoes, one thing that I really was interested in these shoes about was the wide forefoot area or toe box. That is something that Altra's known for. However, I will say that if you go back and look at reviews on each different model, it seems like it changes from model to model to model. Right now, the 3.5s are out, and so many people are saying that the 3.5s actually fit a lot smaller than the 3.0s. Go back and read about the 2.5s versus the 3.0s, you can read a lot of the same comments. I cannot attest to any of that. All I can say is how the 3.0s did for me and what I'm thinking about going forward in the future. But the forefoot, like I said, these are 12.5s. I believe after my experience with them, I probably would have been just fine wearing the 12s rather than the 12.5s. On the Florida Trail hike, what was really odd is on my left foot, I believe, I ended up losing my left toenail. I don't know if it's just because it was a little bit loose on my left foot. My right foot did great, so I'm kind of wondering if my right foot's just a little bit larger than my left foot, which in most people, one foot is usually larger than the other one, even just by a little bit. But my left foot, I don't know if it just rubbed against the wall, the outside wall, and I ended up losing that toenail. Also worth noting, I did wear Injinji mid-weight crew socks with these shoes when I was hiking, so there's that. But I ended up losing that little toenail, and I ended up getting a blister on the outside of my big toe, on the left toe. So my left foot actually had some issues, whereas my right foot didn't have any issues. One thing I do want to say is I didn't even notice the blister until about the second night, I think. I took my socks off and I was just cleaning my feet up a little bit, and I noticed there was a blister there. I never felt it, so it was a very odd occurrence. I'm not sure what it was with that, but because of that, I feel like I probably could have went with a size 12 for the 3.0s, and I think that probably would have been a little better experience for me. As far as the traction on these things, like I said, I've worn them in snow and ice. I've worn them on just sand. I've worn them on pretty much everything except for just walking through a body of water and just in a ton of mud. Wet boards on the Florida Trail, they have some of those walkways that are wet. Just, several different things. So far, I have not failed with these shoes on. I don't feel like I've hit anything where I've lost my traction more than I thought I would. So far, I've got to say I've been happy with the traction on these. Now, I still don't trust them quite as much as I trusted my Innovates, but that's because I wore those things for years, and I felt like I knew those shoes. But I have felt like I've grown to know these just a little bit, and so far the traction I am happy with, and that was my biggest concern with the shoes. Other than that, these shoes are zero drop. That's another big thing a lot of people focus on, but honestly that wasn't something that made me feel like I wanted these shoes. However, I will say that it did take me several weeks to get used to the zero drop thing. It was a big noticeable difference when I first put the shoes on, and especially in those first couple of weeks, if I slipped on something like this and then put these back on afterwards, I was like, wow, that is such a big difference. Now it's to the point to where I'm just wearing these just because I wanted to have these in my hand to bring them out here. Now it's to the point to where I really enjoy going to these shoes for everyday wear. And I feel like I like the zero drop thing. I can't really say that it benefits me in any way, but the whole zero drop thing, it sounds good, makes you think that you're walking like you would naturally if you were barefoot, but you still have all the cushion and everything, so that kind of negates some of that, I would say. But the zero drop thing, it's not a win-lose thing for me, but I will say that if I continue to wear the Ultras, even just for hiking, I would kind of like to stick to something that's zero drop for everyday life, just so that I don't have that big change going from everyday life to hiking. Because of that, I would like to see what else they offer in zero drop shoes just for everyday wear, and kind of start giving some of that a look. Other than that, another thing I was really looking forward to was some good underfoot protection, but still at a somewhat lightweight. I don't really want anything just super light, because I'm going to be out there for 20 days and there's going to be a lot of rocks, and I really, at the end of the day, I want my feet to be happy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they're not going to be tired, they're not going to be a little sore, but I don't want them hurting more than they should. Because of that, I do want substantial cushioning, and I found that these are great. I really love the amount of cushioning and under protection that these offer. I don't feel like that they're going to really, that I'm going to feel everything that I step on. Now that's kind of a bummer, because you kind of lose some of that ground feel. You kind of lose some of that oneness with the ground as you're walking. But at the same time, I do like the amount that it gives me, because I feel like I can step on big rocks all day long, and I'm not going to have to worry about my feet just screaming in pain at the end of the day. Another thing, what I really enjoyed, and I may have already said this, but the springiness of the sole in this thing, especially when I first got them, it was amazing. I don't think I've experienced that with any other shoes I've worn. When I would take a step, of course, my heel would hit first, and it's like when my heel would come back up, the shoes were the sole system was so springy, it was almost like it was pushing my foot back up, and it kind of helped me walk. It was interesting, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. So as far as the cushioning and underfoot support, these are, I think, exactly what I'm looking for. And like I said, the gator traps, they're really nice. I wear the Dirty Girls, so that works really well, because I can trap them back here, and then it's got the little hook up here. Now I will say that the Dirty Girl gators are a little bit thicker than the Altra gators, which are very similar to the Dirty Girls. So it's a little bit tough sometimes getting that front hook through the hook on the shoe, but it'll work. No problem, just takes a little bit extra effort sometimes. Lucy, baby, this is my video. Sorry about that. Anyway, as far as the shoe itself, I can't say how it drains yet, which is a concern I do have, because I like to be able to just walk through water with my trail runners. But I want my trail runners to dry out. That's why I don't wear the rainproof, or the what do you call it, the Gore-Tex liner, or the Neo-Shell lined shoes. I want my shoes to be airy. I want them to dry out whenever I get them wet, and if you have a liner like that, it's a lot harder to get the shoes to dry out. So that's my choice of how I do it. It's my preference. Other than that, there's not a whole lot else that I can think of to say about them. One thing I do want to point out, I'm very disappointed in the shoelaces. At first, the shoelaces seemed to be great, but after about a month and a half or so in, it got to where the shoelaces are holding knots less and less. On the Go Ruck Light Challenge I did last weekend, I actually tied these in double knots, and one of them came almost completely undone, whereas the other one was really loose. So at some point I did have to stop and retie those, and that was very disappointing to me. The shoestrings I'm kind of bummed out about. But like I said, it does have the gusseted tongue, so if little rocks or something land on top, they'll get stuck in that gusset rather than fall down. I really like the gusseted tongue. That's something that I was looking for on a shoe too, and I've been very happy with these. Now, there's a lot of mesh up here. It is quite breathable in my experience. The hottest of times, it can get a little hot, but for most normal hiking that I've done, I haven't really felt like my feet were just over hot. But another thing too, it lets a lot of dirt and stuff in. So at the end of the day, when I take my shoes off, my feet are pretty dang dirty. But you know, that's kind of what happens whenever you're walking for miles and miles and miles a day. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to note. Other than that, I've not really got much to say about these. What I will say is that if I had to go on the John Muir Trail tomorrow, I would be very disappointed if I had to wear these shoes. All the good stuff I had to say about it, I would be very disappointed if I had to wear these shoes. And that's because of fit. Like I said, I ended up with a blister on my big toe, and I lost my little toe. And that was just on a 75-mile hike. I don't want to know what would come of it if it was on somewhat more technical trail for 270 miles for 20 days. I don't really want to experience that. So my goal here, what I'm thinking is, like I said earlier, some people are saying that the 3.5s fit a little bit smaller than the 3.0s. That would be perfect for me. Some people it might not work out, but it sounds like it might be perfect for me. So my goal is to find a good deal on some Lone Peak 3.5s and buy a pair in size 12 and a size in the 12 and a half, and then see which one I think will fit best, and then just return the other ones. And at this point, unless anything drastic changes between now and the time that I hit the trail, which is, like I said, summertime, July, I think that's going to be my plan. Like I say, if anything changes, though, I may see what else they have to offer or something like that. But at this point, this is not about what I'm going to use on the JMT exactly as much as just talking about these shoes. As far as these shoes are going, I would have to say for everyday use, these have been probably the favorite shoes I have worn out of all the shoes I've worn. For everyday, just normal use, these have been the most pleasurable shoes that I've worn. For trail use, these exactly shoes, I would probably say they're more like a 3 out of 5. Maybe only 2.5 out of 5. And most of the good part there is just because I like everything about it except this particular shoe does not work for me in this size. Now, saying that, if I would have worn my size 12s out on the trail, I may have had a completely different experience. At this point, I don't know. That is something I am considering as well. If I can't find any just really good deals on the 3.5s, I'm not knocking out the idea of picking up a pair of 3s in a size 12 and wearing those. But ideally, I want to go with the 3.5s. A couple of reasons I want to go with the 3.5s over the 3.0s is because supposedly the traction's even been improved on in those shoes. As well, they've added some drain holes up here for the forefoot area to help it drain. And I believe the toe box and everything is a little more durable than what they are on the 3.0s. Now, saying that, like I said, I haven't had any issues, but I'm not going to argue for more durability or better drainage or better traction if I can get it for a good price. So anyway, guys, that's my review on the Altra Lone Peak 3.0. It's been a little bit of a long video, but that's typically the way I roll. I appreciate you watching. If you have any comments or questions, just post those below, and I'll get back to you and reply or answering comments or questions. And guys, I appreciate you watching. I'll see you next time.